Hello, my name is Olive Hickmott. I'm the founder of Empowering Learning and I'm the author of The Elephants in the Classroom. This is the third book I have produced on learning differences, and this one very much focuses on looking at neurodiversity through the lens of mental imagery. If I had been born today, I would have been diagnosed dyslexic, ADHD, and maybe a bit of Asperger's. My story started in understanding the experiences of non-dyslexics and dyslexics, learning about the visual strengths that really benefits dyslexics, and exploring the use of mental imagery, and learning how to control and make friends with your mental imagery, and learning how to visualize words and numbers, which makes literacy and numeracy so much easier, and then taking those skills into reading, spelling, comprehension, and handwriting. I'd just like to make a few comments about the structure of this book. It's full of pictures because my focus is on visual learning. It's got masses of real life stories, and it's a natural companion and sequel to Bridges to Success, which was my previous book. The Elephants in the Classroom is very much focused on primary children. And learning differences should not mean that you develop learning difficulties. And I have a few key messages that I explored in the book. I have a message that affects every child, especially those struggling with literacy, numeracy, concentration, as well as diagnosed with or undiagnosed learning difficulties. You have great natural skills, and there is more than one way to learn to spell, read, and concentrate. You just need to find the way that works for you. I have a message for every parent whose child has been awaiting assessment for months or years because of our overloaded educational services. Read this book and start helping your child develop new skills simply and easily while awaiting a formal assessment. I have a message for every parent of a child thought to be on the autistic spectrum. There are simple skills to teach you and your child how to feel safe and not be overwhelmed by the world and by the activity of your child's very fast, exceptional brain. They can learn in ways that best suits them. It's easy and fun. I've got a message for every head teacher and school. Teaching mental imagery in the early years will reduce stress and the need for special educational funding later. Challenge the current educational paradigm and give yourself the freedom to teach in a way that works for every child in your class. I have a message for many adults who are often ashamed of poor spelling and reading. Let go of the shame and guilt. You simply weren't taught in a way that worked for you. Don't be frightened, don't be scared, and don't blame yourself, your parents, or your school. Just come on board and be curious and enjoy the journey. And I've got a message for businesses. It's clear that our society needs all the inventive minds available to solve the problems in our current world. People who think and learn differently can devise incredible business solutions, as acknowledged by GCHQ and Microsoft, for example. I have a message for governments. Mental imagery should be incorporated into teaching at primary school and before, to maximise the skills of these exceptionally talented children. Nobody wants students crushed by a society that sees only deficits and ignores their gifts. Junior and senior school is too late to begin. I have a message for the whole educational system, including parents, who have key roles. Our children are here to teach us there is another way of being, and teaching those who are thinking and learning in neurodivergent ways. It isn't the same way we have been teaching for decades. The world is different now, and these children know how best they learn. So let me just go on to understanding mental imagery. Firstly, the title of the book, The Elephants in the Classroom. This was based on the principle of the elephant in the room, which is an expression that people use to describe something that everybody knows, but nobody actually acts upon and nobody connects together the dots. I have to apologise slightly for the title because some people have misunderstood it because they're neurodivergent and it's an idiomatic title. And so I do apologise to them. It doesn't mean children stamping around the classroom like elephants. Neurodiversity is explained, which is such a key element. Their strengths. I always start with students' strengths. I'm not interested in what behaviours they're exhibiting. I'm interested primarily in what they're really good at and how do they do it. Mental imagery is a vital part of learning for all ages, and it mustn't be neglected. At the moment, it isn't mentioned in primary school and it isn't mentioned thereafter. The education system is meant to be committed to multisensory teaching and learning, but in teacher training, we only teach teachers how to teach visually. We don't teach them anything about how a child learns visually. Bright kids are getting left behind all the time, and this leads to parents and the child's heartaches about what's going on, bad behaviour, distress, all sorts of things. The teachers have a challenge because they've been taught that children all learn the same way and this is the way you teach them. This is not true. We are spending a fortune on diagnosis and assessment when actually we're spending hardly anything on identifying how best these bright kids can learn. There is a section on metacognition and neuroscience explaining some of the things about how the brain works and the neuroscience of how mental images are stored. These children are quite often big picture thinkers. They need the educational pedagogy changed to update for these highly creative, imaginative children. So the solutions. There's a chapter on my personal story, which I call Growing Up in the Dark, how my own dyslexic, ADHD and Asperger's symptoms underpinned my passion for embracing learning differences and minimizing the attendant confusion and stress. This chapter finishes with some of the people who have inspired me to believe that anything is possible with an open mind. A full list of further reading can also be found at the back of the book. Then I look at the exceptional strengths of these children and a celebration of visual learning, exploring the excellent skills that students possess and their underlying talents. Then there is a chapter called Teachers Teach and Learners Learn. There's a real difference between teaching practices and the obstacles that discourage effective learning. Metacognition has helped to break down learning differences into their visual elements and how, with a growth mindset, students can further develop their exceptional skills. Then there is a chapter called A New Perspective, Mysteries and Contradictions, and Updating the Paradigm. The paradox of things that seem illogical until we look for solutions through the lens of mental imagery. Anyone can adjust or modify the current paradigm by following a simple 7-step process and exploring with students their underlying visual experiences. Reading flat on the table is unnatural. It puts more unnecessary strain on struggling students who may find letters being distorted or moving around. Looking down eliminates mental imagery and increases emotions, making matters worse. Reading with work propped up will help increase fluency. High-frequency words focused on in the early years have very few nouns amongst them to encourage the use of the occipital lobe and word form area, which is essential for fluent reading. It's much better to start with words that have visual representations of objects, like cat, dog, lion, tiger, all of those things, all object words. And my final example is that teachers, parents and support staff may have different accents, which are challenging when using a purely auditory strategy. So those are a few of the mysteries that people know about but don't join the dots and work out what to do to get over them. Then when mental imagery goes wrong, explains the challenges we see with students who have not learned how best to use mental imagery. Then freeing trapped potential. This really connects the dots, explaining how the students can use their innate visual skills to help them excel in other areas. It offers specific examples of how to improve handwriting, increase concentration, reduce anxiety, improve reading, spelling, improve sleep, diminish sensory overload, and increase resilience. All of these contribute to improving behavior. And in conclusion, you can create your own map with the simple steps anyone can take to help those struggling with the challenges of learning differences. We have a whole class plan for the youngest students and simple remedial actions for older students. Mental imagery can unblock neurodivergent children's thinking and learning challenges. Thank you for joining me. I do hope you take a look at the book, The Elephants in the Classroom. You are more than welcome to send me any questions at olive@empoweringlearning.co.uk. There is a website at www.empoweringlearning.co.uk, and there is my blog where you'll find lots of interesting articles at www.olivehickmott.co.uk. And if you go onto YouTube, you will find under my name, Olive Hickmott, you'll find lots and lots of free videos, many of which were done for workshops or done during lockdown. So you are more than welcome to enjoy those.